Good afternoon. We're convening the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 2 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol, conference room 224 on GM 742, submitting for consideration and confirmation as the chairperson of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority, gubernatorial nominee John Komeiji, for a term to expire 6/30/2029. For everyone in the audience or online, the way we'll do this is we'll take testimony from those who submitted testimony. We'll run through that and then open it up for any questions. And then after that, we'll afford the nominee an opportunity to come say a few words and then go into further questions there. So with that, why don't we move into testimony on GM 742. Signed up first to testify is the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Senator of the Court, Senator Richards. My name is John DeFries, Executive Director of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. I stand by the testimony that was submitted and urge all to look favorably upon advancing John Komeiji into full confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Signed up next on Zoom is the Canada France Hawaii Telescope Corporation.
Aloha, Chair Lee, Vice Chair Inoue, and members of the committee. I stand by my written testimony, but I would like to emphasize that from the beginning, John Komeiji wanted to do things the Hawaiian way. I don't claim to be in a position to judge what the Hawaiian way is. What I can say is that the method used and involved listening, respect, and building relationships with the local community and with the Mauna Kea observatories. Trust is being built on both sides, which is essential for a transition of this complexity and sensitivity. So this in my view, indicates that the process is moving in the right direction under Chair Komeiji's leadership. Thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you. Signed up next is Mauna Kea Observatories. Good afternoon.
Aloha, Chair Lee, Senators Ilihia Johnson for the Mauna Kea Observatories. You have our written testimony in strong support of John Komeiji continuing his hard work as volunteer chair of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. Just wanted to emphasize and add a little to our written testimony that, John Komeiji has been there every time that we've called. He's been very fair in listening to our concerns. He's been great out there in the community. I have seen him on Kauai all the way back to Hilo, out there fairly listening and working really, really hard to make the Mauna Kea Authority a success. We're very grateful for his volunteer service, and we encourage you to consider him for another term. Mahalo nui.
Thank you. Up next is Noe Wong Wilson. Good afternoon.
Aloha. Aloha, everybody. Mahalo, Chair and members of the committee, members of the Senate. I'm Noe Wong Wilson, first Vice Chair of Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority. I have submitted my own individual testimony and want to urge you to please confirm John Komeiji as for another term as our chair. Under his leadership and along with the rest of the members of the authority, I think this is the most cohesive board or organization I have ever worked under, especially tackling such a huge emotional and important issue like the protection and care of Mauna Kea and such diverse considerations and attitudes from all the different entities involved in activities on Mauna Kea. And he has been a strong and steady hand in keeping all of us focused on what our end goal is, which is to make sure that we set the foundation for Act 255 the way that is prescribed by the legislature, and that we do it in a way that is going to preserve our Mauna for generations, but also to make sure that we consider all considerations and all efforts. So mahalo nui.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We also have testimony from the Office of the Governor, Chamber of Commerce, Ashford and Riston, and a number of individuals. Is there anyone else wishing to testify this afternoon? Looks like we have Mr. Matsuda online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Lee, Senators. My name is Rich Matsuda. I'm with Authority as a second vice chair and also director of the Tech Observatory in Waimea, Mauna Kea. I'm speaking as an individual today. I submitted written testimony. I just wanted to make a couple additional points. One was to recognize how divided our community was back, especially in the 2019-2020 timeframe, and really evidenced by people really not listening to each other. And what I want to call out is the 16 community workshops that we've had. And Chair Komeiji has made it a point to be at these meetings. And at the conclusion of every meeting, he puts the members of the authority at the front of the room for Q&A with the community, really setting the example for transparency and honesty. And he's always played a really neutral role in those meetings. And I think the community has by and large, left these meetings feeling more open-minded and heard. And then the second point is, I think there's a lot of pressure right now for advancing observatory leases because of the challenging timeline. And Chair Komeiji has been very careful to address those concerns and try to move the ball forward without kind of, while still honoring what the authority is meant to do and do things in the right order. So an example of this
Thanks.
is,
If you could summarize, Mr. Matsuda.
okay, yeah, just initiating the comprehensive EIS. So I urge that he be confirmed. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure? Is there anyone online, IT?
No one else is present, Chair.
All right, thanks. All right, thank you, everybody. Before we go to our nominee, are there any questions for anyone who's testified so far? All right, thank you, everybody. Mr. Komeiji, if you'd like to come forward. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Chair Lee, members of the committee, and other senators. John Komeiji, current chair of the Mauna Kea Authority. First, I wanted to thank all of you for having this hearing on a recess day. I know some of you had to make extra effort to get here, so I appreciate that. I also appreciate this committee passing out our bill, 2592, and I know that the chair and others put a lot of work into that. So mahalo for that. That's going to make our job, or streamline some of the things that we have to do for our job, so I appreciate that. I want to start from a big picture standpoint, and I don't have too much to talk about, but I wanted to first recognize that it was the legislature that created MKSOA. And what the legislature did when you passed Act 255 was to create a process where you invited people that didn't have voice to the table, not only in an advisory capacity, but actually giving them votes, right? So we're trying something that is very new, but that was at the institution of the legislature to give voice, with the hope that when you bring people that don't have voice and you have competing interests, that you'll have conversations and that you will come to some kind of collective way forward. What we've tried to do and what I've tried to do is to, first of all, build trust and respect between the various members of the authority. I joke about it, but I'm going to squeal on her again. But when I first met Noinoi Wong Wilson, who I didn't know, first thing she asked me is like, "Who are you? Why are you here?" So I knew I had an uphill battle. So I decided to call her every day and bug her till she gave up. But the point is that she and I have this really close relationship, and we're really honest, really transparent. We may not agree on things, and that's what we've been able to do with all of the authority members, where we have a platform where people can disagree in a professional manner, so to speak, and try to figure out how are we going to move collectively as a state, as an island, as an authority, move forward to kind of address one, in my opinion, the most divisive issue that has surfaced during my lifetime. So what I wanted to do is to first thank you guys for setting up that process, because if you go back to 2019, there was no process. There was no way to kind of involve that. One of the ways we've done it is to increase communication with the University of Hawaii, increase communication with Kia'i, increase communication with all, because the only way, in my opinion, that you develop trust and respect is by communicating. So what we've tried to do is to create a platform to increase communication. But in addition to that, we've actually done some, when I started, we had nobody, and I mean nobody, just me. We had to try and stand up a new state agency, which hasn't been done in 20, 30 years. So I leaned on some of the people in this building to help me. Wes Machida, I call you out, and is one of the really helpful people to help me try to figure out how even to hire somebody. What was the process to do job descriptions? How do we get the job descriptions approved? How do we then feel? So it's like really starting out from basics. So we've gone from there to having now full-time staff members and an executive director. We are in the process of, we sent an RFP done by Lloyd Unebasami, who's here with us today. He created an RFP so that we could hire a consultant to start doing a master plan. Act 255 requires us to do a master plan. So we've started with our master plan. We're on track to get a draft sometime in the third or fourth quarter of this year. We're going to take that draft, massage it, then take it out for community input, and then at some point adopt a master plan. And then at the same time, we're trying to do rules and regulations. That's why your act is, the bill that you pass is so important, because it takes a long time to do rules and regulations. But anyway, we're on that. We also understand the need to start the discussion about leases for the astronomy, for the observatories. People forget that Act 255 says that we are to, the state policies to support astronomy. We take that very seriously, and we're not trying to put in, we as an authority are not trying to put in our own definition of what the state policy is. So we understand that leases for the observatories terminate in 2033, and we're doing what we can to advance that as fast as we can. And towards that end, the board unanimously approved us doing a comprehensive EIS, because it's a lease. We know that we're going to need an EIS. So in front of doing everything, we are starting the discussion about what is the most appropriate way to retain a consultant to help us do an EIS. So we're moving. Sometimes we're not moving as fast as people want us to move, but all of you know that sometimes and it's not any particular person, but just the regulations that surround the state sometimes make it very difficult to move as quickly as one would like. But we're doing the best we can. The other thing that I know there's a concern about is how fast we're able to hire people. And I would make 2 points to all of you. Because of the controversial nature of Mauna Kea and some of the pushback that people had, there's not a line of people. Every time we try to hire somebody, there's not a line of people lining up to become part of this controversy. So sometimes it takes us a long time because we have to kind of massage it and make sure we have a pool of applicants. The second thing is that we always hire the most qualified person from that applicant pool. But if it's a small pool, we have to do what we've got to do. I mean, we have to hire, and because of the timeline, there's pressure for us to hire from that pool, right? So we hire from the pool, and we hire people that we think are going to contribute in whatever way they can to moving us forward. So with that, I again thank all of you for your time, your listening, and your patience. I think collectively, I know collectively we're moving forward. What it ends up being, I'm not sure where we end up being, but we're going to do it as a group. And that's all I can promise you. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Senator Court.
Since you had kind of brought up the recruitment comment, what is your folks' strategy to recruit? Because like how you said, it's not very much of an attractive position,
Right.
but I believe that the people that we're looking for aren't necessarily attending job fairs or at these, they're not going on the state website, applying for these jobs.
Right.
Like they're on INA, they're working, they're hustling. So what is your
Yeah.
folks' alternative to recruitment?
So we previously have kind of used the state template, right? And we're knowing that we got to change. So we have maybe 4 to 6 jobs coming up. So we're looking at different ways now about how we're going to try to recruit and how we get the word out. Part of it is word of mouth, in that we ask our authority members, do you have people in your circle that may be interested? Please let them know. But we have to get a more focused thing to try to attract other people, right? So that's what we're going to try to do.
Okay, so basically it's word of mouth.
Well, we use the state, the regular state processes too, but to augment that, we use word of mouth and also trying to get people. But I think we might have to do stuff like maybe take out an ad or something different, right?
Yeah. And then I'm going to pivot a little bit, Chair, if you don't mind, is when you had mentioned that the original formation of this group was to basically ensure that our community has a voice, we allow input. The accomplishment of this authority board will determine whether we can continue to do authority boards. So there's a lot of what I would consider to be pressure on you folks to make sure that this works, to ensure that we could use it as a platform
Right.
on other very important issues that directly impact our Native Hawaiian community.
Yeah.
And so I think that the voice being on the table is one thing, but getting things done is a whole nother thing. And so with your folks' transitional plan coming up in 2028, primarily I want to talk about your guys' financial plan because Act 255 requires a financial plan to make the authority self-sustaining after the transitional period. So do you guys have at least something that you can give us today that has any kind of generating
No.
revenue expense? Okay.
No, that's the balance, right? Well, it's going to be addressed partly by our master plan. And let me just not correct something, but add that I think the original idea of Act 255 was to get community voice. That was one thing. But it was also we always talk about putting the Mauna in the middle, right? So that what is good for the Mauna is the base, the center of what we should be doing and the perspective that we should be looking at. But getting back to your plan, that's part of the lease issue, right? But the challenge is that because Mauna Kea is so, in different people's minds, culturally sensitive, spiritually sensitive, what do you do to increase revenue without compromising the sustainability and the ecology, right? Part of it is to increase rent, right? But is that going to be enough to generate the kind of revenue you're talking about? But you have the push and pull of that. Let's say we want more revenue, so we increase tourists, right? That doesn't work because that's not the balance that we want. So that's the difficulty in coming to a financial plan that balances all these different kind of concerns.
Yeah, but then making any changes to the leases, whether it new or renegotiating, you kind of do that until after 2028, right?
We can start now. And that's what I'm.
Oh, you can start the
We can,
negotiations?
well, part of what we're doing is, that's why we're doing the EIS. And then we have to figure out, do we need to charge what is fair market value for that land? And if you charge what's fair market value, how do you determine, or how does a appraiser determine for this kind of unusual property, what fair market, what's the comparables, right? What are you going to use for comparables? So it's a really complex thing that we've started talking to people at DLNR, for example, about how do you guys value land such as this? But we can start doing some preliminary thinking and exploration to figure try to figure this out.
Yeah, because financial sustainability is a part of Act 255, so
Okay,
it
so
must be done.
Not to be a lawyer, which I am, but it says, what Act 255 says is that you should strive to get a a self-sustaining plan, basically.
Well, I
So-
mean, there's going to be operational costs.
Oh, no,
right?
yeah,
So
so-
you guys have to do it. Whether you strive for it, people
But,
actually need
okay,
money.
but people don't realize now is, although the lease says they pay $1, the observatories pay for much of the operational costs now. What they do is they figure out what a budget is for maintenance of the roads, keeping Halepohaku, and then they split the observatory split up those costs among themselves to pay for that now. So there is a large portion currently that is being paid by the observatories for operations that they need for their operations.
And is that revenue still going to be going to you folks?
Yes, well, that's
after
part of the,
2028?
that's part of the negotiation, right?
Yeah.
The challenge now, just as we sit here today, is a cut in federal funding. So one thing we didn't talk about, but
How much federal funding is getting cut? Got cut?
there's going to be a $4 million hole in the operational budget for CMS. So we have entered into an MOA, and we're waiting Board of Regents approval to utilize the funds that you have allocated to us to make up that gap in funding for the next fiscal year. Because what's happened is that they've been cut back. They used to get overhead and money from tuition, which they're not getting anymore. So anyway, the university has a big gap. So we've worked with the university to enter into an MOA, which our board, again, has unanimously approved to move forward with that.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Other questions?
Maybe a follow-up on Senator DeCourt's questions. You know, I understood that at the beginning of the MKSOA's startup, that you originally requested a number of positions from the legislature. Can you provide kind of a brief update as to what happened and, you know, were those
Yeah,
positions
we-
provided, not provided?
Yep.
And if not, what did you do in the meantime to, you know, address
Right.
that?
So part of what the challenge was is that we got those positions from the legislature, but as we move forward and as things develop, we had to repurpose, and we're still in the process of repurposing what those positions are, because we're finding that the needs are not the needs immediately that were identified. So that's kind of on me and some of the people I was talking to about the original position descriptions, but we're trying to repurpose those. We also have other positions that we've created. There's a statute that allows for you to do special project positions if the governor signs off. The governor has signed off, so we're going to get special project positions. I mean, the special project positions, though, are stuff like, how do we create an IT, or how do we transfer from UH's IT system to our system, right? How do we develop our own HR system? I mean, it's like from A to Z that we got to do. So it's a matter of repurposing and trying to figure out what we need as we go along.
Okay, given, you know, the short time frame in which, you know, the board is to execute all of these different functions while you're kind of running down the road, it almost sounds as though, in a way, you know, the kinds of special treatment that we have for different state employees or retired state employees, you know, with specialized skills would be a logical set of choices, you know, for your agency to use, because a lot of what you describe really involves a lot of other agencies, and it's not necessarily something of your creation, but, you know, what you have to deal with.
Right.
And so, you know, you had mentioned Lloyd Unipasami had been retained, you know,
Yeah.
for some specific purposes. Do you see the need for other individuals, say, people like Lloyd with specialized skills, either
Yes.
financial or IT or, you know, any of the other areas? But because it seems in a way, as you're trying to move forward to get your consultants on board for the master plan, you almost also have to manage the operational and implementation side. At the same time, you're moving
Yeah.
in a different direction. And, it doesn't sound as though you have adequate or enough, both bodies and/or expertise to assist you. And
Yeah, so that's the problem, right? We're literally building the car as we're going down the road at 70 miles an hour. Literally, that's what we're doing, right? So you're right. And we try to look at as many different avenues as we can to hire people. But we can use people that are more familiar with the system, right? But getting through, because we're an attached agency, for example, with DLNR, we stand in line with the other DLNR divisions to get our things through the system. And it's not fair, and I get from the DLNR's position, you cannot jump just because you have the legislature set a timeline for you. So we try to figure out creative ways, and and I don't want to tell what that is, but we figured out a creative way to sort of get in front of the line. Because if I say it, other people might do the same thing. But we're trying to be as creative as we can to fill those positions. We feel the pressure as much as anybody in terms of getting the appropriate people on board, our team.
because we can certainly see the need for, some sort of interim structure to assist your authority.
Right.
With expertise from a range of either state, county, and other government
I mean,
experiences to assist you as you get to the point where you have that
Right.
comprehensive master
We've
plan.
also, even talked internally about trying to get loaned employees, right?
Right.
That kind of stuff, but I tell you, this car is going pretty fast, man. But I appreciate your thoughts and your concerns, but we just know that we have those some concerns, and we're trying to look at as many different ways as we can.
Further questions?
I've got some.
Senator Richards?
Okay, thank you. John, you and I have worked together and talked at great length about Mauna Kea. And I appreciate the fact, Noi, you come in and making the statements you have. Recurrent words that, whether in testimony stated, stewardship, collaborative, respect, trust, integrity, relationships. All of that takes time, and one of the concerns we have is how are we on timeline? Like you said, you're building the car at 70 miles an hour while you're driving 70 miles an hour. And then it comes back using the balance that you're talking about. How are we going to get there? Because I admire how you're crafting this and put together, and I've stated this before, this is in the truest sense of Ho'oponopono. Not exactly sure the destination, but you're having that conversation. So how are we going to get there?
I feel pretty confident that we're going to be able to get our master plan in place under the timelines that you guys have established for us, as well as getting the leases started and to a point where the observatories will feel comfortable that we've actually gotten to a point where they have some assurance that they're going to get a lease. So overall, I think we're picking up momentum now. It's like anything at the beginning is slow, and then at some point you start ramping up. So I think that we're ramping up so I guess my point is that I'm confident that we're going to hit the milestones that we need to hit.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Further questions? Thanks. Just building on some of the questions on timeline. If there's going to be any sort of unforeseen circumstance that causes, or an ongoing maybe it's the transfer of IT, something along the way that starts to become a challenge, that becomes clear that there would be an delay or impediment to the transition timeline. What does your protocol look like for that? At what point do you raise that flag?
Well, part of it is a continuing conversation, right? So we'll keep on talking to the board like we have this impediment, whatever. At some point, if we have to come back to the legislature to ask and explain why we may need additional time, we'll come back to the legislature. But there's no specific plan, and we haven't developed specific plans if the IT system doesn't work. I mean, we're not able to convert on the IT system. We haven't gotten to that point
Or it
yet.
could be, any of.
Yeah,
the
yeah,
part
no,
of it.
but we haven't gotten to a point to create any kind of contingency plans yet, because we think that we're on track.
Is there anything on the federal side that you'd see as a potential variable?
Well, we don't exactly know where TMT is going, and that partly involves federal.
But insofar as, I mean, various other federal regulatory agencies, things like that.
I don't see that. The big federal thing was if TMT was, they were going to hold separate hearings for that sort of is necessary, but in a way a distraction also. If they had TMT, they would create all these hearings across the islands, which kind of gets things all up, rouse things up and causes us to have to divert attention. But there's nothing specific in terms of any federal agencies that we have to worry about.
And then secondly, one of the potential nominees for the board withdrew a week or two ago. As far as having the actual capacity within the commission to go and execute all these various things that need to happen, what was your plan to address that?
Paul is really involved. We have a subgroup that is involved at reviewing all of the assets that UH has to transfer to us, led by Ben Kudel, who's one of our another authority members. I mean, literally every asset, forks, spoons, leases, permits, etc. They are in the process of creating a report that should be given to us in the next couple of months. Paul, who withdrew, was part of that group that was reviewing all of that. So we're waiting to see who gets nominated. There was a Senate President's nominee, but we can proceed along with Ben leading the group. We have an outside consultant helping us to review all those assets. So although there's a hole, we can still proceed on the main project that he was working on.
As far as the consulting contracts go for what's currently in place or other needs as they arise,
Yeah.
how does the funding situation potentially account for, and let me ask it this way, do you have a financial platform that would account for those uncertain potential future liabilities as they come up?
Yeah, so what we've tried to do is, even this year, we tried to accelerate contracts as fast as we can so that we can encumber funds, because we're not sure what might happen next year. But currently, based upon our calculations about what we anticipate getting next year, if it's on the same level, be tight, but we should be able to get all of our EIS consultants. We already have encumbered money for our master plan consultants. So we feel pretty good about the funding if it stays at the similar tack that it does now.
And that includes contingency.
Yes. So part of what we're trying to do is rush before May, whatever, to encumber as much as we can, understanding that there may be additional pressures next year.
Any further questions? All right, hearing none. Thank you very much. We're going to take a recess. Good afternoon. We're reconvening the Committee on Water, Land, Culture, and the Arts on our 2 p.m. agenda here in State Capitol Conference Room 224 on GM 742. Appreciate everybody who took the time today. For this measure, for GM 742, submitting for consideration and confirmation as the chairperson of the Mauna Kea Stewardship and Oversight Authority gubernatorial nominee John Komeiji for a term to expire 6/30/2029. The recommendation is to advise and consent. Any discussion? Hearing none. Acting Vice Chair.
Okay. Members voting on GM 742, Chair's recommendation is to advise and consent. Chair goes aye, Acting Vice Chair goes aye. Noting the excused absence of Senator Inoue, Senator Chang, Senator Lamasao.
Aye.
Chair, your measure is adopted.
Thank you. With that, we're adjourned.